could end, and how the Ukrainian people would allow it to end if they would ever be willing to give anything, a geographic area. I'm just throwing things out. I don't know the answer. I think I know what the answer would be if it was me and I felt I could win the war. It would be, you get nothing. You're the invader. You attacked our country. We're here. We're going to fight you until the end. But is there any way possible that NATO or the UN or anyone could come in and just say, look, here's a proposal? Would Ukraine look at that?
I am 99% sure that nobody in Ukraine would support that idea, and the same way the world, the developed Western world, should be looking at this. Because once we give up at least a meter or kilometer or a square foot of the land, it will mean that the law, the world law does not work, and that is a very bad sign. For Ukrainians, it is much more, because we are losing lives of our people, and it is, according to different estimates, from 100 to even 200 dead soldiers every day. And even if our politicians decided to, or maybe the European allies, so to say, decided to push us towards saving face of Russia, it would be just exchanged by the face of the developed countries in the West. So it's, if we save the face of Russia, we lose the face ourselves. And who's right here? Russia has made up everything. So they have this attitude, and it's been always working for them, unfortunately, very well. They do something and then they accuse us at doing that. So if they accuse us being Nazis, their soldiers are coming and acting like fascists. If they bomb our cities, they accuse Ukrainians bombing our cities. So there is literally no way for us to find something that they can get.
Okay, one more time before I know you have to go. How do people get in touch with you? What's the website? How do they help out if they want to help family farmers in Ukraine?
First of all, www.wrru.org. Everything is there. The way to donate, my phone number. I'm here until the end of July, and willing to meet with everyone who wants to listen. And also, there is a bi-weekly every second Friday. Information is there too. www.wrru.org.
All of that information will be tied to the podcast that Abby will be putting up about our conversation with Roman. When we come back, let's head to Kansas right after this.
On the dock of the bay, watching the tide.
Ooh, that's
After he had to bail one of the boys out. That's right, Mike Matichek Custom Combiners, found his way to Kansas. I know that because I was talking with him yesterday a little bit. Mike, good to have you back on News and Views, bud.
Good morning, Joel. Good to be back.
Well, walk me through it. What part of Kansas are you in, Mike?
We're in about central Kansas, I guess you'd say. It's just south of Hutchinson, Kansas, little town of Pretty Prairie. And the wheat here has been pretty good. It's kind of the breadbasket, I guess. They hooked a few showers at the right time, and it's not as good as last year. Some of the sandy soil is less, and some of the good stuff is getting up there around that 50 and some 60 bushel wheat.
Okay, so what's when you say is this? I mean, they still irrigate some, right? You still got some center pivot. You got some wheat like you've raised that is dryland wheat. I mean, what is the comparison? What are you seeing?
Yeah, he likes to. He's got two pivots usually a wheat, and they run about 110 to 115 this year. And the sandier ground was down around 30, and then we get into some clay areas where we're looking at this 50 to 60, which is the majority of it. So, that's proof right there. When wheat can get the water it needs, it can really make the bushels.
Yeah.
The test weights have been just unbelievable too, between 65 and 67. You gotta be careful loading them trucks, or you got 100,000 on the darn things. And Kansas don't like that any better than anybody else.
They don't like it being overloaded, huh, Mike?
No, they just they do put it on credit cards now, though. You don't have to have a checkbook anymore.
That's the good part. So, Mike, what about cotton? I know cotton was taking up some of those wheat acres.
Cotton's taking up a lot of it. Actually, Pratt, Kansas is just 40 miles west of here, and they got a cotton gin in there now west of there, and there's a lot of cotton creeping up all the way just about to I-70, whereas just 10 years ago you didn't hardly see any cotton in Kansas. I think different varieties that handle the little different climate better, and they're getting cotton crops. And cotton is just like everything else, 3 times what it was, last spring. So
let me ask you this. I mean, we've been friends for a long time. You get your crew, you go down there, you go harvesting for the guys, you build relationships and friends for life as you work through it. But the fuel price for you is up. I mean, there's no question about that. Did you ask the boys that you're buddies with? Did you say, look, there's crop prices are up, fuel prices are up. We both got to share in this a little bit.
Oh yeah. There's definitely going to be an adjustment to allow for fuel. It has to be. It's over doubled our cost, and you're getting a 30, 27, 25 bushel wheat. You don't burn as much fuel. But you get in this heavy wheat, you burn more fuel, and of course, it's better for everybody with the yields. Better, good for the farmer, and then you can afford to pay a little for fuel also.
So what are they saying, Mike? It's always easier when you can roll into a yard and they've got wheat out in the field. I mean, what's the attitude of the farmers out there right now?
Well, in this area is good. You don't have to go very far, and they're looking at 30 bushel tops. And pretty much everything I've been hearing from Texas all the way up through Oklahoma and western Kansas, you're looking, my guy in Oklahoma there that we got a comment of his own, he averaged 17 on half his acres. The other half was destroyed. So there's a lot of areas that aren't very good either. The majority of them probably. I talked to a guy up here at Delphus this morning, and he says some of that's 15 to 20, and hopefully some of it on the summer follow will be a little better. Might try and do a little up there this year and see how things turn out.
So all in all, the custom combiners, the guys that come through, are you seeing people as they get out of wheat count on them more? People like you, or are they buying their own rigs, or what? I mean, you've been doing this since you're a very, very young man. What's changed?
Yeah, this is 45 years. What has changed is the landscape. It used to be when you drive from town to town, it was wheat, fence row to fence row. Now, as you drive around, you have a hard time even picking out a field of wheat in the most areas there. It's, I'd say, 50% less wheat than it was 15 years ago, and mostly going to the, cotton and milo and lot of soybeans. They're turning yellow though too. It's been hot and windy down here. Yeah, it's just really changed. And then, like you said, a lot of the farmers are buying their own equipment, and with the commodity prices the way they are, there might be more of that. I'm not too worried about this guy. He's got a lot of cattle and he's got a lot of irons in the fire, so I think he'll keep on hiring.
What about a crew? Was it tough to get the guys together, or did you have? I know you've got one rig down there. I mean, well, you've been able to put the team together.
Kinda. We had a couple guys that were actually supposedly on their way to the farm, and they never showed up. So I hadn't planned on going, trying to heal up from some back surgery. But it got down to myself and my son, so we took off Sunday morning a week ago, and we got lucky. We got another truck driver that was within 50 miles. I went and picked him up, and he's been working out real well for me. And when you say crew, yeah, it's lightly. We got enough to get by here, but we're going to need some more help when we get home.
How about the weather? Have you been running into any rain when you were down there?
No, beautiful weather for harvest. 100-plus degrees and windy every day since we've been here. No end in sight. Right here, it's just unbelievable. It's good harvest weather. It's going to go quick.
Okay.
I mean, I'll be surprised if there's any weed left in Kansas on the 4th of July, except for a few stragglers.
Okay.
Harvest is just moving up the road fast.
So does anything get seeded after that?
On the pivots, he's following in with soybeans, so you can turn the water on.
Okay.
Other than that, not much. It's dry. We're in a drought here, just like everywhere else down south here. But if they can turn the water on, there's some beans going in.
Mike, do you still love doing it? You've been doing it close to 50 years. I mean, 50 years of packing a bag and heading south when you got plenty of work to do back home as well. And I know this was a family tradition, and running that binder was always fun. But, I mean, do you still love doing it as much as what you did before?
I do. If you could get help is the big factor. If a guy could get help, he'd probably do it forever. But it's just about impossible to find help, and anybody you talk to, I mean, it's not just us. Everybody's looking for help. And then you get these kids. I got a kid from Pennsylvania called, and he's still advertising himself to the highest bidder. I mean, I think he's talked to every custom harvester there is, and he's still not working. So I don't know. It's just they want to work. They say they want to work, but when it comes right down to it, I guess they really don't want to. Something
tells me you weren't surprised about that either, though.
No. I think I talked to 7 guys this spring there, and they contact me looking for work. I'll get back to them. Yes, come on out. And half of them didn't reply at all, and half replied and didn't show up. So I don't know. It's just what's going on with this world.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's an event in Wahpeton, and I realize a lot of the folks that are listening to us, home base is Williston's. It's a long way from Williston to Wahpeton, but there's an event in Wahpeton on Friday called the Matichek Open, and that's named after Mike's family, just his wonderful family down in my home area. And it's a golf tournament to raise money, and it raises money for CHI, for hospice and home health. And, my wife was involved in it for years. And it sounds to me like you're not going to make it again, Mike.
No, I will not make it. My wife and daughters will be there. And I don't know if the son-in-law is going to make it or if he's got a replacement. I've heard both ways. But I talked to Tammy this morning, and there is still room for a few more teams on, I believe that's this Friday.
Yep, it's this Friday.
At noon, registration at 11 or something.
Yep, you want to get a team together and you want to help out hospice and home health and you're in the area, come golf with us. I'll be there.
Yeah, there's a little room there yet. So.
All right, well, good. You keep the boys out of trouble. Did you bring enough cash along for bail, or how are you going to work it this year?
You got to bring cash, because this day and age, it's about impossible to get any cash from anybody with all this fraud going on. Get it from home.
I'm so not going there. Always good to talk to you, buddy. We'll touch base next week, okay?
You bet. Talk to you later.
Mike Matichek, ladies and gentlemen. Let's head to the weather cave, and Tom, he'll take you. You regards to certain things that we deal with, certain things that we have to deal with, and certain things that we just don't. Down in Texas over the weekend, the Republican GOP held their meeting. So they had the big statewide meeting. John Cornyn was one of the individuals that spoke to him, and he's a United States Senator. He's the ranking senator in Texas, which means that he's been in office for a long, long time. And he gets up there and he got booed like you would not believe he got booed. And the reason he got booed was because he's serving on that bipartisan committee that hasn't put proposals out there yet. They've just simply said, look, what can we do? Let's take a look and see what we can agree on and what can we do. He got in trouble with the Republicans in Texas just for doing that. Imagine that. With all the shootings that we've had, with school shootings, with fourth graders being butchered, being massacred, that as a United States Senator, if you from the party that you have served and the state that you have served, you get up there at a Republican convention and you get booed. I mean, who are these people? I mean, who are they? What type of human being is that? I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's just absolutely amazing to me. You look at all the news reports and you say, what? You know, it's like, man, our democracy and just the way that we deal with our problems and everything that goes with it. And it just leaves you going, are we ever going to be the country that we could be, that our forefathers and foremothers gave us the opportunity to be? Or are we just going to be this divisive, the only people that are right are mine, and just this whole culture of just adoring one human being and thinking that we got rid of the monarchy for a reason, right? We didn't want a king. And yet there's a huge percentage of people in America that believe that Donald Trump, if he could be the king of this nation, we'd be in a great place. And I don't know how we got there. Now, if you're looking for a good sign, if you're someone with common sense and you say, look, there's no one individual that should have this much power over a nation or a political party or a group of radicals, for that matter, that we need to find a way to expose it, to see it, then look at what's happening with the January 6th committee hearings. They're being watched. They're being read. So much, in fact, that the 45th president, the man that got beat by over 7 million votes, he's gone out and just bashing the Republicans for how they're dealing with the committee and how they're not defending him. And, you know, it's awful tough to defend against a bipartisan committee that brings facts forward. And what I found to be the most interesting thing this morning was the fact that 58% now of Americans, 58%, which if you're at 58%, that means you got a lot of independents and, quite frankly, a sprinkling of Republicans that say that Donald Trump should be charged with a crime for the insurrection on January 6th. And I was like, what? And then they showed it. And it's true. And it's where the poll is. And it's the individuals that are part of the cult that think he can do no wrong, that won't watch the January 6th committee hearings, that won't listen to the people that have testified. And understand this, the people that have testified are Republicans. They're not on my side of the aisle. They're the ones coming forth saying, yes, he did this. Yes, he did that. Including his daughter. I'm sorry, but when your daughter is testifying against you in a hearing, I think it says a lot. And so here you go, right? Is it going to make a difference to you? That's the big question. Or are you just waiting for time to pass so you can ignore it? Dealt with, things that were too wet, right, to get into the field. We sat there forever with that, and then we get into the field. Now we got land blowing, and it's like, what in the heck is going on out there? Well, Adnan Akuz, Dr. Akuz, is the North Dakota State climatologist, and he's the past president of the American Association of State Climatologists, and he's a professor at NDSU. So we're going to get a chance to visit with him about not just here, but around the U.S. as well. Dr. Akuz, good to have you on News and Views.
Good to be here. How are you, Joel?
What is going on? I mean, that's a fair way to start our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yesterday, actually, I was coming from Grand Forks to Fargo, and at certain section, I ran into a dust storm, and I had to put my brakes on hard, really, because I didn't want to hit the car in front of me. At one point, visibility went down to almost zero. I could barely see the in front of my car, and I can't believe, and that was happening. Given all that wetness and the rain that we had, well, that really is indicating that the soil moisture down below, even though it might indicate wet, but because of that hot temperature and scorching the sun hitting the topsoil. And I noticed that there is some farm work all around it, and as the chisel plow goes on the farms, and it is stirring that top layer of dry the soil and putting it back into the atmosphere with that kind of a wind, and it wasn't surprising, really, if you think about all that factors that we have been having episode of dust storms, and here and there and everywhere between Grand Forks and here.
Well, and I had a friend that was talking about the same thing. I think he mentioned, Dr. Akuz, the Thompson area, but he said it was blowing so bad that he had to pull over on the side of the road, that they just couldn't even see.
I could have done that, but I thought about car coming behind me, so I had no choice but keep driving.
Oh, absolutely. So, and then here's the other thing that I mentioned earlier in the show today before I got you on here is I had a farmer talk to me, and he said, Joel, I'm not as worried about the topsoil moisture being as dry as what it is, as long as there's moisture underneath. And he said he feels that there is good moisture underneath. He was more worried about the wind and the dirt, snapping off the plant. That's what he was most worried about.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of, because this dust was coming pretty intense, and I am afraid with the temperature we had yesterday, we didn't break the record. We came very close. We tied the record in Fargo with 101 degrees, and the previous record was 1933. So that record was held for 90 years. And all of a sudden, it is drying up the topsoil, and the farmer is absolutely correct that we've been having this rainfall since April, and it kept coming week after week, and contributed to the major flood in many places to the north of Grand Forks area. We came very close to that point, but we didn't get the major flood in Fargo. But despite that kind of rain, still it puzzles me that how quickly the topsoil dried up. But I can assure you, looking at some of the models that shows the soil moisture, deep soil, especially in the eastern North Dakota along the Red River, is plenty.
Yeah. Dr. Akuz, what's happening nationwide, though? I mean, it seems like every time we turn on, the TV or the radio or pick up any form of social media or print media, what we see is an extreme when it comes to weather. Is this just me not understanding that this is the norm, or is this just saying, wow, I don't like 105-degree days with the wind blowing 50 miles an hour?
Yeah, you have to keep in mind that we don't usually hear near normal. And who wants to hear 80 degrees in North Dakota, Fargo, because it is our normal. You usually hear when everything is extreme, and you think that everything became extreme. So it is one factor that we only hear the newsmaker, the extreme temperatures, the highs and the lows, the blizzard of April, late April in North Dakota, for example, or if that was a cold temperature, we would hear that too. And yesterday, I'll give it to you. It was pretty extreme in especially in the eastern North Dakota, and it was pretty hot. And I am a person who would like to be on the hot side, and it was even too hot for me. I opened the door, and I just couldn't stand outside for longer than 1 minute. I had to go into the comfort of my air conditioning. Anytime when you have a high pressure parked over a region for a long period of time, in the summer that means heat. And the big flow of the air around the high pressure rotates clockwise. So if you are in the from south to north portions of that flow, then you are going to get hot. And if you're on the downstream on the other side, and the flow would be from Canada into the region to the southeast, and those regions are going to be cold. And if you look at the weather pattern yesterday, it was the case. To the west of that line, everything was in the order of 98 to 100 degrees and even hotter than 100. But if you look at the east of that, temperatures were pretty much mild. So that's what we've been seeing.
So what does the patterns look like to you? Last year, when you looked at South Central and, the middle part of North Dakota, they really suffered. They couldn't get a rain. They couldn't get a rain. When they finally got rain, it was at a time when it was too late, and then they got just a ton of it, to where they're washing out some roads here and there. I mean, what's to be the norm? And I'm not going to hold you to it. I'm just trying to ask you what this summer could look like.
Yeah, last year it was pretty intense, and in fact, it was the worst drought to strike North Dakota since 2000. And looking at the other indices, we can tell that the drought of 2020 was comparable to the Dust Bowls of 1930s and 1980s. And I can hear this from the farmers. They are anecdotally telling me that this is even worse than 1980s drought. We just gone through a big drought, and as you said, you're right, the rain return in August and October were the only 2 months that was above normal in precipitation, and it was just too late. And we got into this wet period, and the soil is wet, and when it evaporates, it is added into the atmosphere, and it becomes rainfall again, then you get into this period of wet. And that's where we are right now. And if you're looking at the temperature extremes, we do have some of these temperature extremes once in a while. And in fact, the probability of our temperatures being greater than 100 is about 29%. That is just a little more than a quarter. That means once in 4 years, we are supposed to have temperatures above 100. And last time when it happened, that was in 2021. You might think that, wow, 2021, 2022, back-to-back 100-degree days. But the previous 100-degree day for Fargo was all the way back to 2012. And the prior to that was in 2006. And you have to go all the way back to 1930s to have really serious the warm temperatures. From 1929 all the way to 1941, every year we had 100-degree days. And in fact, in 1936, we had 10 of those 100-degree days. So really, the hot temperatures happen in earlier days. In fact, in case somebody is trying to blame on climate change, but it is not really. It is just the natural way of weather showing itself.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody's waiting for a weekend that isn't like the last. Any type of weekend would be. It's one thing to get hot, but it's another thing to get hot and 40-mile-an-hour winds. And it really took the starch out of some people. Here's the difference in some of what's been sent in to me, Dr. Accuse. One says, if we take more trees out, we'd really have dust storms. We have to get 10 more bushels of wheat or another 150 beets. Another one, we need shelter belts, Joel. I've got a friend back home, And he said, Joel, it was these heavy rains that have caused the land to blow. It's pulverized everything. I'm sure he's saying into fine particles versus not. And I'm wondering what your take on that is.
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing as I was driving. And some locations were having no wind, and some locations are having wind. And obviously, the difference is the field work. And I saw people working in the field as I am looking behind the tractor. I see the dust, and I know there is wind. It is hard driving. And some locations do still have some shelter belts remaining. And those fields tend to look okay, and I know that the field work is happening, miles and miles to the east of where I was driving, and as the tractors were stirring that dust, and since there is no trees, no shelter bed, everything is gone, and the wind really doesn't have any problem dislodging the small particles and even big particles with that kind of wind, and putting it into the air. So you're absolutely correct. I agree with that.
Dr. Accuse, it's always good to have these conversations. I'm sure we're going to have more because the weather is always on North Dakotans' minds, but our summers are so short. You've got to use it within all the power you have as a climatologist to make sure June's better, okay?
Well, I will do that.
All right. Dr. Adnan Accuse, thank you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, here's the other part. You take a serious look at, where you're at when it comes to driving down the road, and like Dr. Accuse did, and you see dirt blowing. Keep in mind that farmer doesn't want that dirt to blow any more than you do. They don't. That's number one. That snaps a little crop off. That's crop he's not going to get. And number two, that soil is soil that he values immensely. And so I hope you listened to what my buddy texted in and said, which was, hey, it's some of the big rains that have pulverized this. And if you want to talk about somebody who's been reporting weather in ag country for his career, then let's go find him. Let's find the state's top meteorologist, in my opinion, and too tall, Tom Szymanski. Tom, when you get big rains like the rains we've had, it's going to lead to the potential of soil